Here I was needing this fix. I started to do it at work. The one place I thought I would never look at pornography would be at work because, I mean, look at the chances of losing your job, and I didn't want that for my family, but I continued to look. I even situated my desk properly so I could see everybody who was coming into my area, and I could actually turn it off. For me, it got to a point of where I ended up spending so much time looking at it at work that my work didn't get done. So what would I have to do next is I'd have to work overtime in order to get my work done. So here I'm sitting there looking at pornography at work, spending hours at work trying to make up the time that I missed. And I've got a young family at home. I've got a wife at home. I've got a young son at home at this point. And I'm missing out on things right and left. And, Darce thought, you thought I was working.
All this time I'm thinking, oh, wow, he's getting overtime. The money's coming in. He's just a really good worker. You can't leave things done at work. And I was totally blind to what he was doing for most of the time that he was there. And, looking back at it now and finding out that he was doing that, I was appalled, to say the least, about what was going on and how dare he leave me and Bailey alone. And, it was a sore subject for a while.
So I'd switched, pornography had consumed my life at this point. And I'm sitting there one day, finally, when I realized I was having issues, is when I sat there and all of a sudden I'm noticing people are leaving. I thought, sweet, lunchtime, we're going to go get lunch. And people were actually leaving for the day. They were done. It was 5 o'clock, and I had actually been looking at pornography all day. I couldn't tell you what I was looking at because I was in such a trance with it. At this point, I knew that I was in trouble. I knew that I was into this too far and too deep. So there were so many times I sat there, I'm going to quit today. I'm going to quit looking at it. I'm just going to stop. I can do this by myself. And then next thing you know, find myself 2-3 days later, hour, whatever, looking at it again. I kept going back to it and going back to it. Something you'll find with pornography, if you struggle with it, it is not like any other sin out there you'll find. I know people who quit smoking cold turkey, eating habits, drinking habits, there's AA and stuff for that. But there is no other sin like this because it's so private. It's so hidden. For me, I could just go in and shut the door. For you guys, it's the same way. I know you guys got filters and stuff here at campus, which is great, and I really applaud that. But when you guys go home, those filters go away. So you have access to this. It's a private thing, and so you can keep that shut into yourself. And it's something that I needed help to get through this, and I didn't know what it was because I was too ashamed to tell anybody. My pride as a male didn't let me do that. It didn't let me tell anybody. So I carried this on for multiple years, and through those years, I found the Lord, and we started to attend church, and I was really running after Him, and my life was really on fire at that point, and I felt so good about it, and I was finding out who I was, I was finding out who God was. And then we're sitting there all of a sudden, and there's a point in my life where I'm like, there's still something wrong. So I asked somebody at my church at the time, and I said, I'm really struggling with this pornography. I'm having a hard time. I'm looking at it all the time. What do I do? The guy freaked out. The look on his face was like, I need to run. I need to get out of here because it's a tough conversation to have with somebody. And he just looked at me and he said, we're all guys. We deal with it. And that was the last conversation I had with him about it. I thought, oh, sweet, here's somebody who is staff on church, and they're telling me all guys deal with it. Instead of pointing me in the right direction, getting me help, getting me whatever it would be, counseling or accountability with him at that time. So I just continued on doing what I was doing. But God was telling me that there was so much more for me in my life than what I had at that point with pornography. And I remember sitting there driving home from work one day, and I'll never forget it. It's right where 96 joins 131 heading south. I remember sitting in my car physically screaming at God, why have you left me? Why have you abandoned me? Why are you not loving me anymore? I don't understand this. We're going nowhere anymore. And it wasn't like it was audible or anything like that, but in my head I could hear Him telling me, you know what it is. It's the pornography. You need to knock this off. And at this time, Darce and I were leading a young married small group. and we were talking about tough decisions and difficulties and stuff that run through our lives. And our church at the time that we attend now is Ada Bible Church, and they actually had an event called Porn and Pancakes. And I thought, this is a great event for my guys. They really need to attend this. Our guys really need to do that, not realizing it was my issue. And then, and as we were talking about it in a small group, I told everybody that I had an issue with pornography. And Darce will tell you that that's not a good spot to do that.
No.
Not in the open like that.
Don't tell me something that is that huge and not let me scream at you in front of people. Even though I love my small group and they opened their arms and helped us through that, don't do that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like getting blindsided. So, yeah.
It worked really good on my behalf because I didn't get murdered that night. But I don't suggest, telling somebody like that and, and blindsiding them. So we went to the event. It was actually 2 days later, and we get there, and it's just packed because everybody's there because, oh man, there's billboards up that say Porn and Pancakes. A church is doing something about pornography. We had people come in there thinking that the church was actually going to show porn. Which wasn't the case at all. And Triple X Church, who I work for now and do work with, they were hosting the event. And, the first thing that happens is they get up and they start talking. And Craig Gross, who is the founder of Triple X Church, he starts reading from Romans 7, where Paul's talking about, he doesn't want, he tries to do good, but he continues to do bad, And I just kept associating myself to that. There's so many times I'm sitting there and I'm just screwing up royally. But yet, I know I want to do something better with my life, and I know I want to do what's right, but yet I keep going back to it. I think it's Proverbs, I think it's 26 verse 11, where it talks about, a dog goes back to its vomit, that's basically what I was doing. I continued to go back to it, even though I knew it wasn't right for me. Also on that day, they had a gentleman there by the name of Donnie Pauling. He was actually an ex-porn producer, and he shared with us some of the realities that happened on the set. And in general, I'm a very passionate, and I'm very concerned about people, and I want to help people, and it bothers me when I see people hurt. And he started talking to us and telling us about what would go on behind the scenes. After they were done or in the middle of a take, there would be this girl balled up in the corner of the room in a fetal position, crying, going in the back room, drinking alcohol so she could numb herself, and just the damage that they were doing to themselves physically. It really bothered me. It really bothered me. And one of the things that he told me too that took me to a new place was, he's like, so you're looking at pornography for free online. You're looking at these little quick clips here and there. That makes the company more money than actually what their stuff cost. Because what happens is they put these free clips on the site, and that's what he would do. He would host a website, and they would put stuff on his site for free to try to get traffic to other places. And he was making roughly in the ballpark of about $450,000 a year doing that. That was his bread and butter, not realizing what he was doing to these girls. These girls were local college students for the most part that would come in, and they were desperate looking for money. They could make more in an hour working with him than they could working 2-3 months at Starbucks. So it was the temptation of having that money. So he started talking about that, and I thought, man, I'm just as guilty as the next guy, And then he says, that's somebody's daughter. And that was one of the biggest things that hit me, was because at that point I had a daughter who was about 5 years old. And I couldn't think, it just drove me crazy to think that that could be my daughter. Would I want my daughter in that situation? Would I want some other guy looking at my daughter like that? And then the next part was just a gentleman who you could see his progression. His name was Bill. He looked at pornography as a kid, looking at magazines, and it grew to movies. And then from there, it just kept snowballing. He was a corrections officer, and one day he gets a call from his house, and he picks it up, and that's his wife. And there's another gentleman who is an FBI agent, and he says, you need to come home right now, or we're breaking down, or we're basically going to come in and we're going to tear apart your house without you being here.